Hello and welcome to Idea Lab, where we've got ideas just cooking up out of all of our lab equipment, and they're just bubbling all over. So spill out to you so that you can be a better person, you can go higher, you can get all that you need to get from us, from our ideas that are just spilling out. And you can tell I don't have this all smooth, so that's fine. Hey, welcome to Idea Lab, and I'm Sylvia Henderson, your host, and I like to bring you information, I like to bring you ideas, I like to bring you thoughts and things to think about, some lessons to help you get your ideas out of your head and into action for profit and for purpose. Today's format, because you know I change the format a lot and do different things, do demos, bring you ideation sessions where we take people through the idea generation process, and we have panel discussions, and I also interview guests. And today I have a wonderful guest. I have a friend, a colleague who is here with me, and we're going to have a conversation. We're not going to have an interview. We're going to have a conversation. And my guest is Glenn Garnes, who is Mr. Village Connector himself. So Glenn, welcome to Idea Lab.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's nice to be on your TV show.
Yeah, on the other side, yes. On the other side of things, I do a radio show, and every now and then I am interviewed on somebody else's show. So I go, oh, this is cool. I'm on the other side of the microphone.
Yeah, just bring on the questions.
That's right. That's right. So today I wanted to reprise, I guess is the word, or redo, or whatever the word is, a conversation we had a few months ago. A lot of the people that I work with have ideas. They're established entrepreneurs or established professionals in their field. They have ideas, and I take them through the ideas they already have and help them get them organized, get them strategized, and get them implemented. Well, we were talking a few months ago that, there's a lot of folks are sitting out here with either they don't quite have an idea or they don't quite know what it is that could be that could be their thing, that could get them out of the doldrums, out of the dreariness, out of the unfulfilled purpose that they have, and for many, many reasons. And I wanted to just kind of bring that conversation back up, because they need to hear kind of the beginning of how to even get an idea. Why should I even bother with an idea? And so what good is it if I have one and I'm sitting here at my desk just doing my thing? Because that's what we do here in Washington, D.C. We sit at our desks and do our things. That's right. and the conversation was just so energizing, and it was just so vibrant that's why I wanted to bring this back to our viewers.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because I think you should lay a little bit more groundwork here, because the subject matter of this show actually arose out of a discussion that you and I were having about, as you pointed out, taking what you originally started with the Idea Success Network and going back one step, which was to not just help people get their ideas out of their head and into production and profit and purpose, but to how to get the idea in the first place.
Right.
And we had such a great discussion. The stuff, the information, the ideas were just flying. And fortunately, we recorded that because we didn't get a chance to actually think about it until months later. But you said, we'll come back to this. And sure enough, here we are with the TV show episode. So good for you.
And and of course, the first time through, sometimes the brilliance just comes out, and you're like, oh, we need to bring that to
exactly
to the world. And then you think, okay, so what did we say?
Well, I'm glad you remembered, because when we recorded that, I gave you the files, or you actually had the files. You sent them over to me, and I didn't really listen to them until you said, "Hey, I'd like to do a TV show now, and we're ready to go." You sure enough told me that we were going to come back and do this, and I'm just glad that you did.
Hey, I figure I have to practice what I preach: idea to implementation.
Exactly.
So here we go.
Exactly.
So for those of you, I'm going to do a little bit of an intro just of the actual topic. If you haven't read the actual program write-up, I want to say it on camera, so that you don't have to go and find the write-up for it. So the title of this session was called whose boss is in your mirror? And when you look in the mirror, do you see your boss? And the intention was either when you're looking in your bathroom mirror, are you the boss? Or do you see your boss in the rearview mirror because you're working for somebody else? So in your bathroom mirror or your rearview mirror. When you have ideas, when you have dreams, when you have goals, and you take action on them, then you control yourself. You control your fate, and we're going to talk about that. You can transform lives, both your life and the life of other people. When you stay safe and when you play safe, then on a job or when you're beholden to somebody else's ideas, then you've elected to live a life of potential regret and unfulfilled dreams and unfulfilled promise. And you don't want to do that. I think we're so used to following the path that we were told we need to follow as a kid, and we do the things our parents or our guardians or whoever guided us into our adult years, because because we're told. We think we have to follow that path, and we think we have to do that job that we've been doing in order to make the money that we have to make to live and to survive. And over the years, we find that something in our hearts is not coming out, and even more, we're not making money on that. And a lot of people say, "Well, I just want to do it to change the world." Yeah, but you still need to make money to change the world. So
that's right. There's not a lot of change takes place with what you have jingling in your right hand pocket.
That's right. And so we said, let's talk to people who have lost their jobs maybe, and they're sitting there thinking, "What do I do next?" People who are transitioning to that something else, but they don't know what it is. Let's talk to the people who are retiring. Hey, I'm a baby boomer. Well, you're a baby boomer too. And I would be retiring. I would have actually retired a couple of years ago from my corporate job had I stayed on that job. So a lot of folks are watching who are retiring and trying to figure out what's next in our lives. We wanted to talk to you if you're not looking for network marketing kinds of businesses, but you're looking for something that's a kind of a home-based business that you can build on your own. We wanted to talk to you if you're a stay-at-home parent, and especially if you're homeschooling your kids. What can you do to help get their ideas out as well as develop your own? And really anybody who is I heard this term, a want-trepreneur.
A wantrepreneur.
A wantrepreneur.
Oh, I like that one. I'm stealing that.
I heard that term and I thought, interesting, instead of saying a wannabe.
Yeah, a wantrepreneur.
Yeah. So if you fit any of those descriptions, then you need to keep listening and keep watching and stay tuned to this conversation. So.
And it's funny because as I was listening to the people you were identifying there, the truth is that there aren't any people on the planet that don't have ideas from time to time. But the problem for most of us is that we dismiss them as quickly as they come to us because we just think for whatever reason we're not worthy to pursue them. And that's why most people miss opportunities when it comes to ideas. If you're a homemaker and you think it's your role just to be a homemaker, you're probably not really taking yourself seriously with ideas that come to you while you're daydreaming or thinking during the day. And that's the real shame in it, is that we've been conditioned to think a certain way and to be in a certain paradigm. If we are employees, then our goal is to do what's in our job description. And very rarely does your job description include creating, creative thought, coming up with new ideas, Think about this. I mean, if Bill Gates or even Steve Jobs, if they had been, and I'm going to talk about this later, but if they had been employed when they came up with the idea for Microsoft or came up with the idea for the iPhone, that would have been owned by their employer instead of by them.
Yeah.
So this is why I love what you do with the Idea Success Network, because you're really giving people the opportunity to liberate themselves from a way of thinking that's holding them back and limiting their potential. And it's just a wonderful thing to be doing.
Well, thank you. You've provided the environment with Village Connector and all of the physical environment as well as resources and the connectivity. Spit it out. The connectivity with other people and other entrepreneurs, other like-thinking people, like-minded people. We all think differently, but like-minded in terms of success. So both the system or the way of doing it, and as well as the facility to do it, I think it's a powerful combination.
Well, the truth is that, yeah, I created that environment, but it wouldn't mean anything without people like you who are taking advantage of it. So you're putting it to its best use, which is what makes my heart sing, to see the connections that you're making, the people that you're helping. When I see some of the workshops that you've done, some of the people that have participated, and how excited they are to really have that aha moment where they really feel validated that, yeah, this was a great idea for me it was a great idea for me to be in this workshop pursuing my ideas. That is truly magical.
So okay, well, I don't want to date this actual show, but Labor Day exists, and that's a holiday, and I had to laugh as an entrepreneur. I kind of forgot that it was Labor Day because of the whole meaning of, other than the sales, the whole meaning of Labor Day is to celebrate the labor movement from the past. And I'm thinking, and so I went looking online and looked up the labor movement. And I mean, these were people who were miserable in their jobs, and they were essentially boycotting or marching on their employers. And I thought, oh man, I don't have to do that. I don't even have to think about that. So kind of, I don't know where we want to start talking about what we were talking about, but just
let's talk about Labor Day for
just a minute. I was going to say that was a good
segue because think about this. Labor Day exists because the labor force felt the need to be validated in the role that they play in our economy. So literally, they were looking for recognition. And when you are dependent on someone else recognizing you, you might wait for a little while, And so one of the things I love about having ideas is that, other than the fact that you need to bring your ideas to market and see who's interested in purchasing your products and services as you come up with your ideas, you don't need an employer to validate your existence. And that's the sad thing about some of our people in our workforce is that there's a lot more people that are working for someone else that have the ability to pursue their own dream instead of building somebody else's. But because of the way society conditions us to play it safe and to, basically limit ourselves to careers rather than opportunities, we often underachieve because of that. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with having a job. Jobs are a great thing, careers are a great thing to have, but the way that we're conditioned about the approach of that job or that career is that, we go work for somebody else for 40 years, and then we retire and just quietly go away. That's not really a legacy for for humanity. That it's not really truly edifying of what the contribution we could truly make to humanity when we limit ourselves to just performing a job for 40 years and then retiring. So I love the idea of helping people to experience somewhat of an awakening or an enlightenment that there's more to your life than just working for somebody else. And especially for those of us that are not happy with what we're making in our full-time jobs, or we're not happy with the conditions under which we're required to perform the services and everything. There's a lot more out there for people, and they just need to be willing to shift their view of how they approach monetizing their talents. And it's amazing how many things come into existence for them because of that.
I think a lot of that too is they don't know. I mean, I worked for a company for 20 years, major Fortune 50 company. Liked what I was doing for the most part. I think for about 3 years I was miserable, but for the most part I liked what I was doing. And I remember talking to a couple of the contractors that we had working for us, and they said, I said, so what are you doing next month at the end of this contract? And they said, well, I don't know, but whatever comes up after this. And when you start a job where you think you're there for the 30 years and they're paternalistic and they're going to take care of you and you've got your guaranteed employment, I could not fathom not knowing what they're going to do the next month. But somehow they seemed happier than all the rest of us.
Well, insecurity has become the new security, so to speak, because there's a lot of people, like you said, when I was a kid, my father worked for a large Fortune, whatever, 100 or 50 company, very, very, very much a competitor to the one that you worked with. So we won't mention the names of them. But You know, he was there for 35 years. And then he retired, and he quietly went away. You know, took a package, like everybody does.
Got that watch or whatever.
Yes, indeed. But here's the point, though. He is like stunned at how many different times my sister and I have changed ships, because it's just not something that he's able to comprehend.
Right.
Why you wouldn't stay with the same company for your whole life? Yeah. But that was the paradigm that he grew up with. Yeah. That's what security was back when he was coming up through the ranks. Now today, you know, everyone's getting right-sized and downsized and all that other kind of stuff. There is no such thing as, I mean, if you stay 35 years in a job, people think something's wrong. You know, so the bottom line, I guess, is that people need to have that awakening to understand that job security is a myth. If you're looking at the fact that you're going to start with this employer and end with this employer and not go anywhere else. That just doesn't happen anymore. So you've got to keep your options open. You've got to be open to new ways of doing things. And unfortunately, a lot of times our school system prepares us to get good grades, get your diploma, and then go work for somebody else.
Well, our whole education system is set for the 1940s and 50s
That's
industrial
exactly
era.
Right. That's exactly
That's
right.
another whole program.
That's exactly right. But you know what? It wasn't always that way. If you go back before the Depression, more people owned businesses back then than I think the statistics at any other point in time. More individuals owned businesses, and what happened was when the stock market crashed, everyone got spooked, and then the industrial age came along where there was more manufacturing and larger companies and enterprise level companies that needed employees, and it was easier for people to go work for somebody else than to build their own thing. But the bottom line is that I see a resurgence of entrepreneurship taking place now. A lot of that is brought about by the communications that we have through the internet and how easy it is to get products and services to market these days, and how many people are working virtually to support smaller businesses and smaller entrepreneurs. There's so much creativity that goes into how a business can operate today. There are really multi-million-dollar operations that are home-based. And that's not something that most people thought about back in the 40s, 50s, even the 60s and 70s for that matter.
Well, this is the kind of, I mean, our economy now is an information, well, actually, it went from, I just heard the other day, we've gone from an information economy to now we are an idea economy. And that just didn't come from me because I'm into ideas, but it was information economy was the computer age of getting and pulling information together and getting access to information. And now there's so much access to information that the challenge is synthesizing that and making decisions on it and taking action on that information. And so they're calling Daniel Pink in some of his books or talk about the idea economy now, and that we've got to be able to process all the different things that we get, all the different the devices and the stuff that we get in many different forms, and do something with it instead of stay stuck, and create new ideas, get new ideas from the existing information that's out there.
Well, what you're really saying is that in a lot of ways, there are too many ideas. Sometimes people don't know what to do because there's so many things that could be done. And you know that's why, unfortunately, a lot of times people miss opportunities because they, as I said, they dismiss the ideas that are coming their way as quickly as they come to them. They don't take the time to engage in deliberate thought about where the opportunity may be with this idea that they came up with. I was just thinking about one that you said here where there's so much information coming our way. Well, that's going to create an opportunity for someone to organize that information and to make it bite-sized pieces for people to consume. You know, there's an idea right there. Now some people say, oh, that sounds like but someone's probably already doing that. That probably wouldn't work.
See, and that's a problem too.
Yep. Actually, it's out of their heads, and then the next thing you know, they see somebody else doing it. I know you wrote a book about that.
That's right. They say, hey, that's
they see somebody else doing it, like, hey, that's my idea. You know. So the point is that, you know, I like to think that one of the things that I was hoping to communicate to people today is the concept that you should never dismiss your ideas without giving them some deliberate thought, because you never know. I mean, who was to know that? You know, can you imagine if Henry Ford hadn't taken the time to come up with the idea for the assembly line? I mean, we'd still be riding horses, because most people wouldn't have been able to afford cars. I mean, the assembly line democratized the automobile. It made it possible for the average person to own a vehicle. And being able to own a vehicle meant that people could live further away from work. They were more mobile. That created more opportunity for them. If Henry Ford hadn't, can you imagine if Henry Ford had chosen to work in a factory instead of creating an assembly line? You know, so the point is that that idea changed the entire complexion, the entire shape of America, the entire shape of the world.
Yeah.
You know, another one of those ideas was Bill Gates when he came up with, creating Microsoft Windows or Microsoft DOS at first.
At that time, yeah, whatever
and
it was.
then eventually what we know today is Windows. Windows, whether you like the software or not, you have to admit it has had an impact on virtually everyone in the world, making most people more productive than they ever were in the work and even in their play environments.
Well, and it's had the impact on people who were sitting there with Apples are saying, oh, but that doesn't affect me. Well, actually, Apple exists because somebody didn't like the way Windows was presented.
Exactly.
And
exactly
they incorporated the Windows.
Exactly. So, but the point is that advance in technology had a profound impact on making virtually everyone on the planet more productive, regardless of what they were doing, at play and at work.
Yeah.
You know, we're sitting here playing with Wiis and Xboxes. That's all Windows-based software for the most part. And so the point I'm trying to make is that if Bill Gates had chosen just to work for someone else that day, instead of having his own dream be pursued, who knows how behind the times we could be. So you can't afford to underestimate the impact that your idea may have on other people. And so, again, that's why I applaud what you do, because you help people to see the value of what they do and to realize the value of, and by realize it, I mean not just make recognition of it, but to bring it to fruition. What does GE say? They bring good things to life. That we're not GE. They're not advertising on the show. But the point is that that's what people do. We bring good things to life. And I see so many people these days that are complaining about they don't feel like they're getting paid what they're worth. I've got a whole video on that, a whole lesson on that. They don't feel like they're getting paid what they're worth, but what they don't understand is that people get paid what their position is worth, not what they're worth. And the other thing that they don't understand is that I don't care what it is that you do for a living, you're always going to be limited to how much it will cost to replace you. And people that just perform labor are more easily replaced than people that come up with ideas. People will always pay you more for your ideas than they will for your labor. And that's something that we don't understand. That's why we are willing to go to a job and work for someone else, but we don't realize that the reason we have a job is because somebody else had an idea.
Yeah.
And so if we could be the one with the idea, then we could be the one creating jobs. But that also creates a greater opportunity for the person with the idea. So we don't get taught that in school very often. I mean, I don't remember in high school they're talking about having your own business.
Oh my gosh.
We were preparing to go to college to then get a job and work for somebody else. And the only way that we found out about the opportunity to have our own businesses or to be in entrepreneurial mode was when we became disenchanted with the job.
Or the job got disenchanted with us.
Or the job got disenchanted with us,
yeah.
We got disenchanted with the job, or a combination of those factors. I mean, let's face it, most employees are working just hard enough not to get fired, and most employers are paying you just enough that you don't quit. I mean, that can't be a system that's productive long term. So I'd like to think that people would explore entrepreneurship and explore their ideas and come into an awakening that allows them to really make a contribution to society before they become disenchanted with their career path. It's okay that you wait that long. I mean, I went through that. I practiced law and got to the point where I did that until I hated it. And when I felt like I was going to need a criminal attorney to defend me, I decided I needed to get out of the practice of law because I couldn't take the clients anymore. I love the clients, but not what I was doing for them. My point in saying that is that if you look at it from that perspective, why wait until you are sick and tired of what you do to be inspired to do something different? And so I think back, if I had been introduced to, if I had been more fertily, the seed had been more fertily planted that there was an opportunity for me to be in business for myself, I might have taken a different path, and I might have done that earlier, and I might have, been enjoying what I do now longer. Because Lord knows that I absolutely love what I do. And it's because I was able to choose to do what I love. And ultimately, practicing law was a vehicle to that end, but it wasn't the end all for me.
What if you don't know? I mean, when I was relaying what I talked to the contractor about, and not imagining how I could not know what I was doing next month, I also was like, but how do you even think entrepreneurially when you've been thinking like an employee for so long? And and there's nothing wrong with thinking like an employee, but
well, you know what? There is something wrong with thinking like an employee, because here's the way most employees think. They get hired to do a job. Okay. There is a job description. And because they have been painted into the corners of that job description, they have a tendency to limit themselves to what's in their job description. And the reason for that is because they know that that's the measuring stick by which they're being evaluated. So if creative thinking and coming up with ideas isn't part of your job description, you subliminally tend to believe that you're not going to get credit for coming up with an idea, so you'd be better focused on the things that they're evaluating you on. It's kind of like, you read some things in a book, and they seem really interesting. But if the teachers told you that's not going to be on the test, you're not going to pay attention to those.
You just described the education system.
That's exactly right. Hey, here's what's going to be on the test. Forget about all those other things in that book. So that's true of your job description too. It has a tendency to limit your focus, because you're always trying to validate. You're always trying to make sure that you're doing what's expected of what the employer expects of you. And very few people see the wisdom of doing more than what's expected.
That's in fact, many environments you're put down.
That's right.
By your peers for doing more.
Well, by your employer too. I don't pay you to do that. I need for you to do these things. So sometimes we get actually chastised for trying to be doing a little bit more, which is another reason why you don't want to limit yourself to a job if you can get out of that. I mean, the bottom line is that most successful people, they do what's expected and a little bit more, and that's what distinguishes them. But a lot of people won't take the chance, which is why so many people end up staying in those jobs. Because usually what happens is when you do the little bit more, you get promoted, or you come to the attention of someone else and you get hired away, or if you're really lucky, you see the value of getting out and doing your own thing because somebody that you work for has said, we're not interested in that. We just need for you to put these caps on bottles. We don't need for you to tell us how the bottle should be designed. Okay, I'm going to go design this bottle and I'm going to sell them myself. And that's how industries are born. That's how opportunities are born. So I guess in some ways, so there is a problem with the way employees think sometimes. Not because they're trying to be less than valuable, but because they're conditioned to believe that what's important is what the employer told you should be doing.
Okay.
How many times do you see these days an idea box where the employer's actually giving you credit for dropping an idea in the box?
They have the suggestion boxes from
suggestion box. That's what I'm saying. An idea, yes. And this suggestion box is that you get back to work and do what I told you to do. So.
And the company takes those suggestions and goes and.
And that's the other thing. When you take that suggestion, put it in the box, that becomes, because you were being paid for that suggestion, that becomes the company's idea.
Actually, I remember signing something.
That's right. You signed.
It said you cannot
property rights. Intellectual property rights on any ideas you come up with while you're working for us. And that ought to tell you all you need to know about the value of ideas. Your employer wants your ideas, but they want to own them. So, I'd like to think that because, as I said, there's so much more information available these days. When you look at the internet and the way it's connected us, YouTube, you can go on YouTube and find a video on virtually anything these days. So if there's something that you don't know how to do, you can find out how to do it, and that creates an opportunity for you to pursue your idea earlier and faster than you might have if you felt, because the first reaction a lot of people have is, well, I got to go back to school and learn how to do that. No.
Not anymore.
Think about this.
I'm fascinated by what people have learned on YouTube. Or a similar.
Exactly. My entire business is based on the internet, which didn't exist at the time I was in school.
Right.
And in fact, when I started getting involved with the internet, there were no courses on that. You couldn't go to college and take a course on the internet or on internet marketing or social media. None of that existed. So if I had to wait until all that stuff was being taught in school, I would have missed a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is that YouTube and the internet and what people's theme-based websites on different topics, that is the new education process.
Yeah.
And you don't have to wait until you get a degree to be able to be successful with something anymore.
In fact, there is a video that's actually, it's been many renditions of that video have been out over the years, showing that, and I don't remember the numbers, but that a person who enters college today the material that they learn is obsolete by the time they're a senior 4 years later, something like that. And I was like, wow, that's how fast.
I'd like to think that sometimes it's obsolete by the time they get tested on it. You know, I mean, when you think about how fast things are moving, when you think about how fast things are moving on the internet, you know, Google changes its algorithm for search engine optimization like every 20 seconds. You know, there's a new social networking community coming in. Like, you know, by the time ink is dry on the pages of books that you're learning from in school, that information is no longer relevant.
Yep.
You know, so this is why I say that what does Jim Rohn say? Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. And that's why we can't limit ourselves to just what we hear from a teacher's mouth or learn in a class or learn in a course at school.
Yeah.
You know, the real education, it's what's taking place outside the classroom. And the internet is where all that's happening.
I hear people say sometimes when I sit down with them, say, but I don't have an idea. What would I do, or where would I get an idea? That always fascinates me too, considering there's 15 of them in my head. I don't know which one to deal with.
Exactly. I'm like, here, take one of these. I'm writing a prescription, take one and call me in the morning, you know?
So I don't even know how to address that sometimes, but I don't have an idea. I think, my God, just look around and what aren't you happy with, or what's the one thing that irked you yesterday? And that, you know, and actually there's a website called Betterific, and Better, Better, Betterific. And I love it. It's a subscription kind of a thing. Every couple of weeks I get a note that says, wouldn't it be better if? And then people just throw out ideas. So, you know, hey, if you need an idea, go there and find one.
Well, see, and with Idea Success Network, you've got the forum where people are discussing ideas and sharing ideas with each other. I mean, that's what the internet was born for, was collaboration. But what you just pointed out is actually going right back to where we started, which is the paradigm that the typical student and or employee has, where if they're not being told what to think, they don't know how to initiate deliberative thought on their own. And you know, I've talked with you about this before. One of my favorite books is John Maxwell's Thinking for a Change. And of course, there's a little double entendre in there, because most of us don't take the time to engage in conscious and deliberate thought on a regular basis. So it's not a surprise that they're not coming up with ideas, because they're not engaging in any kind of intellectual stimulation that results in an idea. More importantly, most of us don't think that we're going to be rewarded for it, or that we feel are not worthy, that our idea wouldn't matter. So we never take it to the next logical step of like mapping it out and really seeing what we could do with it. You know how we in collabs here in the Village Connector Community Cafe area, all the walls are painted with whiteboard paint. We wear those things out, putting up ideas and writing down scenarios and ways to do things, and the next thing we know, we've got some new thing that's happening because we took the time to brainstorm it. Most people don't do that. And
unfortunately, they're going to steal my idea.
Well, you know, I don't even think they get to the point where someone is ready to steal their idea, because they don't want to pursue it themselves. But the point is, once you have, I mean, if you've gotten to the point where you've taken time to think about something and you get excited about it, you get some passion behind the idea. Yeah, I mean, I guess if someone was going to steal your idea, I don't know that would discourage me from pursuing it per se. But I guess they feel like the little guy, what is the chances of, that's really, when they think someone's going to steal their idea, I really think that's more tied to a lack of confidence in their ability to bring it forward. Because they feel like, Ford's going to steal my idea, or so-and-so's going to steal my idea, or whatever. And the truth is, Ford's going to eventually have somebody that they pay to figure it out if you don't take it forward first, you know? But I think that a lot of that, again, is part of the paradigm. We do not, when we go to school, we are preparing for the test. We're taught what to think, not how to think. And so when we don't know how to think, we don't know what to do when an idea comes our way. Because my first reaction when I come up with a new idea is, look, let me write this on the board. Let me see how we would use this. How would it work? There's a protocol. Well, you created a protocol for it. The impact process. There's a whole protocol for what happens once you have an idea. So most people don't get that. You should be teaching this in college, is what you really need, in high school even, because without that model, without that protocol of what to do with the idea when you get it, That's what causes people to just allow it to go in and out of their heads before they even realize what they have.
Yep. And when you were talking earlier about Henry Ford too, the thought that came through my head was sometimes we think we need that new thing, that new idea, and really he didn't have a new idea. He just improved on something
that already
existed.
And that's another one of those scenarios. And here's the other thing: a lot of people think that that Bill Gates was some brilliant mind and everything, and he may have been, and Steve Jobs may have been some brilliant mind. There are a lot of people out there very brilliant, and they come up with great ideas and they become very wealthy or become very successful with them. But Henry Ford was actually someone who was in a lot of ways educationally challenged. But he still had ideas. Very smart people come up with ideas, and frankly, not so smart people come up with ideas. And the ones that come up with ideas, it doesn't matter how smart you were. If you had the idea and you're smart enough to pursue it, you can be very successful even if you're not the one that has the talent. Think about this. Henry Ford hired people that had talent. He was a talent scout. He didn't sit down there putting nuts and bolts on cars on the assembly line. He wasn't running the business operations of the company. He hired people to do that. He had the idea for an assembly line, and he went out and found people who were better than he was to fill slots to make it happen. Andrew Carnegie the same way. He was not an expert in steel. He knew how to assemble the right team of people that had the expertise and turn that into an industry. So, yeah, maybe he was smart enough to realize that he was just dumb enough to need somebody else's help, and that's all the smarts he needed to have. Was that he needed to find someone smarter than him.
You hear that a lot from good managers who say, "Hey, listen, I just let smart people smarter than me take the ball and run with it."
That's right. So, if you can be a good manager of people, if you can be literally a good talent scout, if you can have enough vision to see that something is worth doing, and if it's worth doing, you can find the right people to do it. You don't have to be talented. That's the other thing. A lot of people think, well, how would I get that done? Or they always want to take it on as their own thing, and unless they can do it, then it's not going to get done. And Michael Gerber wrote a book about that. The whole E-Myth series, E-Myth Revisited, E-Myth Mastery, where he taught people how to work on your business, not in your business. And working on your business means not making the business about you and how much you can do, but having the business be based on who you can put together as a team. And I've actually learned that in a lot of ways the hard way. I used to be a real good delegator when I was in my law practice, but it was because it was a lot easier to find people who could be a secretary or a paralegal or this and just plug and play. But Village Connector required me to really be a great talent scout, to find people that understood how TV studios worked and who could replace me in my vision for what that needed to be. We were able to do that this year with Doe Delamici coming on board. I mean, that was one of the most profound advances in the history of Village Connector was Doe coming on board and taking over responsibility for all the programming. Melissa, is here with us running the studio and everything. I know how to do it, but I don't do it the way she does. And so that became something that came off my plate. Now, if I was one of those people who was insistent that everything had to be done by me, then for one thing, I wouldn't be up here because I'd have to be in the studio running the equipment. But here's my point. Every opportunity I have to bring someone else onto the team that fills a slot of something that I'm doing that I don't have to be doing, I am finding the opportunity to find the right person. Now, I do have a tendency to wait until I find the right person, but at the same time, I'm very open to taking something off my plate and turning it over to someone that's more capable than me. I don't know if you were around, I was making this comment the other day that I can't remember the exact context that we were talking about this, about finding people smarter than me.
Okay, yeah.
And then I started realizing that everyone was smarter than me, so it became a lot easier to find people. So I just started finding people that were smarter than I was and inspiring them with the vision, with the idea. And the next thing I know, I got a whole bunch of people that are, making my dream come true, but also being very well rewarded in the process. Because we don't have any employees here. I teach people how to operate their own businesses. So. But so, I think that the message I think for most people is, don't limit yourself to your job description. That's a disservice to you and to your community, because you have a greater value that you can offer society. And you owe it to yourself and to society to explore your ideas and to get around people who inspire you to pursue them. There's somebody out here that if you had an idea would want to join in to help you make it happen. Yeah,
you have to just keep getting out to, you won't know it unless you get out and share that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I had, and you've been saying some of this, I had right before the show, I did just a Google. I went to the, the universe of Google, or the dictionary of Google, and I just did a fun search. I did a search on the term, love my job. So put it in quotes. Did the term, love
There's
my
only
job.
one entry on.
Well, no. Well, close. They had 600,000 results. Now we know that, that can include
any
all
other
kinds of
phrase
stuff.
that's searched on the internet would have billions of results, but
and
only 600,000 for I love my job.
That's why I said it was 600,000 results. Then I did a search on hate my job. There were 12,900,000.
There you go.
900,000 results. I did a search on job makes me rich. There were 3,570 results. I did a search on entrepreneurship makes me rich. 6,130,000 results.
There you go.
I was like, wow.
Now, see, that's another one of those reasons why the internet is so powerful, because if you need a clue, you just got one.
That's what I know.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. What validation for this show and for the event that we're going to be doing after this, that this basically leads into. And that is, and what part of what I was going to ask you is, so we've been talking about sort of the why, or the reason why people need to get their ideas in action, and they need to, even while they're still working. In fact, somebody told me once, consider your job your investment for launching something on your own, or for doing that what do we call it, multiple streams of income while you're still working, to build up.
Yeah, and I like to think, there are good reasons to have a job. And the two reasons that most people think of are, well, actually I don't even think they think of the first one, but what you'll learn. I think that what you'll learn is more important than what you'll earn in most jobs. But the second reason that a job is worth having is that it provides you a stable income source while you prepare to pursue a bigger vision for yourself.
Yes.
And so many people limit their vision to what they began earning in a job, and they get comfortable there. It feels secure. And they never explore or get outside of their comfort zone with anything ever again. So jobs are great if you use them as tools to create something greater. And that's where I think we leave a lot on the table, is that we never get out of that great thing, which is the job, to create something greater. And creating something greater is what allows you to reach your full potential when it comes to your contribution to society.
I love that you say a place to learn, because when I look back on how I learned, nobody taught me to build my then speaking business, then training business, and now kind of a consulting, guiding, coaching business. I didn't take, I took seminars, but I look back on the business ethics and how do you write a proposal, or how do you work smart and not hard, or the things that I don't even think about that I do to make my business successful. That all I learned from the 20 years of major corporate America that instilled the business ethics, that had the...
You mean there wasn't a book on that?
No.
They didn't have you study out of a textbook and then watch a movie on it and then get tested?
Didn't learn it on YouTube, no. So that was the training ground. It did learn how to word things so that somebody else understands them, and how to write a proposal, which sounds like drudgery. I hate it, but just a lot of things I learned from those 20 years or more in the couple of different companies. And so you're right. You figure out, you learn from that, and then you implement it on your own.
Well, I always like to tell the story, and I'm going to tell the story at the event that you have coming up on October 2nd. But
that we have coming up, but yes.
Well, I'm merely a guest there. This is your event, your idea, your event. But we're going to be working to bring it to fruition together. So that's good. But when I was in when I was in my first law job, the first law firm I worked at a law school, I learned how to practice law, but I also paid very close attention to the partners and learned how to operate my own law firm, which is why I wasn't there very long. And there were a lot of attorneys that were there every single day working in the law firm, but all they really were paying attention to was working on their immediate cases. Yeah. They weren't understanding the business of law. They weren't understanding what it meant to have their own practice. They still to this day practice for someone else because they were limited to that job description. And that's unfortunate because, I remember back when we were with the firm, there were a lot of people that were saying that they would do things differently if it was their firm. The problem was that was an idea that they allowed to escape them the minute it came into their heads, because they immediately started thinking about, oh, but I can't do that. Oh, how would I do that? Where would I get the money to do that? All the self-doubt started creeping in and pushed them right back into their little comfort zone, which is usually an office about the size of a cubicle. And I'm just saying, speaking the truth. So, when with this event that you have coming up, I know a big part of it is going to be helping people to shift their paradigm, because that's the most insidious aspect of what it is that holds people back, is that they're stuck in this rut, in this habit, in this paradigm that conditions them to believe that they're limited in what they're capable of doing. And we need to get people to think in a different way. We really, their brain has been washed one way, and now we need to refresh it, kind of reboot it, so that they can install some new programming that allows them to reach their full potential rather than being limited to what they've been taught all these years. And the truth is, there are very few people that are not capable of doing more. In fact, I don't know anybody on the planet that isn't capable of doing more. Right. If you're living and breathing, you were put here to reach for higher levels in whatever it is that you do. Trees grow until they die. They don't grow and then stop and then they don't never have another root grow. Everything on the planet seeks fuller expression. And as human beings, we are looking to seek fuller expression unless we've been conditioned to limit ourselves to just what someone told us we should be doing in a job. And that's why I think that the full potential in humanity won't be reached until people start thinking the way of abundance. Wow. And the way of abundance means thinking about pursuing ideas. That's why ideas come to you, because somebody's supposed to pursue them. And if they came to you, you're probably the person that should be pursuing that idea. And so when you see somebody else, someone probably figured out that, look, you're not going to pursue it. I'm going to give it over here to someone who'll do something with it. But my point is that the event, one of the reasons I was willing to participate in this event was because I saw it as a way to help people move beyond these self-limiting paradigms and to start really seeing their self-worth. Because when you stop measuring your self-worth by what somebody else is willing to pay you, it's amazing how much more valuable you become in your own mind and to others.
And so people are like, what are they talking about? What's that event? So
all right, well, why don't you tell them what the event is?
So, so if you're watching this before October 2nd, October 2nd, 2014, we are doing an event called Ideas, ... powered by you, and you in capital letters, because it's not an acronym, but it really is emphasizing you have ideas, whether you know it or not. And if you don't know that you've got ideas, you need to come to the event, because we're going to talk about how to get them. So that's that piece even before getting the ideas out of your head. It's how do you do the deliberative, the thinking, the whole deliberative thinking, I think you call it. I call it creative problem solving, whatever you want to call it.
Deliberative thought.
Yeah, deliberative thought. There really is a process and there are activities, or there are ways to get the ideas that you can then work on. We're going to tell you how. We're going to cover, so once you've gotten those ideas, actually, part of getting the ideas is figuring out, so what am I good at? So what am I interested in? So what are my strengths? We're going to talk about how you can figure out and discover your strengths, discover your why, discover your purpose, if whatever word you want to use. But to find your strengths, then figure out how to get an idea based on your strengths. Then, once you've got the idea, we're going to talk about how, notice it's not just theory, it's how you get those ideas out of your head and begin the action that you need to take in order to make those ideas real. And we're going to talk about and tell you how to, even when you know what you should do, even when you say, oh, I've got the burn and I've got the idea and okay, you showed me what to do, but I'm still not in action. We've got somebody who's going to talk about, so how do you really get inside of yourself and break through, we say break through the stuck, and that's an overused term, but essentially break through the stuck so that you really do get into action. And we're going to do all of that. We've got 4 experts, four people, that's kind of including all of us. Susan Combe, who does handmade life coaching, I think is her business. She's the person who will be taking you through discovering your strengths in a nutshell. I'll be doing how to get those ideas, how to get ideas and get them out of your head and do something with them. Courtney, I can't say her last name. Courtney Budney will be wrapping it up at the end to get you unstuck, for lack of a better word right now, and get you moving to doing what you know you should do because you got all the rest of that information and you're the glue that's going to tie it all together.
Well, I'm not sure how that's going to happen. I want to see how that works, but I will do my part.
There you go.
But yeah, and it's funny because first of all, this event is free.
Yep.
It's going to be live streamed.
But we want people.
But we want people to come and show up. Exactly.
That's right, because there's an energy. There's an energy of people when they're in the room. And if you're here, well, I guess you can participate on the live stream too in the chat room.
But at least if you're here, we'll be able to pass the mic around the room and get questions. And the whole idea is for us to begin a dialogue that changes what people are talking about. Instead of sitting around on Sunday evening festering over the fact that it's time to get back into rush hour traffic on Monday morning, what if you were talking with people about an idea that was going to liberate you from ever having to go back to work again? And even if you like what you do, what if it was an idea that allowed you to live on your paycheck but then create your nest egg out of this idea you created for yourself? Mm-hmm. A lot of people are struggling to be able to come up with enough money to pay into a retirement plan. What if your retirement plan was that you came up with an idea that paid you royalties for the rest of your life? That is as worthy as anything else that anyone's doing to live comfortably in so-called retirement. But most of us don't look at it that way. Most of us limit ourselves to what we've been taught is the right thing to do, the safe move. And the safe move is to go work for somebody else and work for 40 years and then try to retire on half of what you couldn't make it on during the 40 you were working. I don't know why that makes sense, but that's what we're sometimes taught to do.
And even when we first started out the conversation tonight, when you were talking about that, working for 40 years, I remember, and I thank whoever told me this when I started working for this company. People would work for the company for 30 to 40 years, sometimes 50, I can't imagine, and not only retire, but I know at least 3 instances where they literally died within the 2 years of retirement. Mm-hmm. And I'd heard of other stories of people retiring and that same thing happening. So that's not only just retiring and kind of disappearing, but my gosh, dying. And I had a manager tell me early on, and I thank him for doing that. He said, yes, you may need to work the 60 hours in order to, grow your career and be seen and all of that stuff in the early stages. But he said, find something else to do. And back then, multiple streams of income and, internet didn't exist back then. But he meant do something else. Do something else that feeds your heart. Do something else where you get validated, not just from the job, but from something else.
And that's a good point, because a lot of people that experience that scenario where they've worked for 40 years and they retire and then they die shortly after that, a lot of it is because they measured their self-worth by their job.
That's right.
They were their job. Their job was who they were.
Yep.
And the bottom line is that when they stopped doing that, they didn't feel like they had value anymore.
Yep.
And that's just unfortunate, because everyone's got value. And the bottom line is most of us are underachieving because we limit in our minds what we believe that value to be. We allow our value to be what the position is worth rather than what we're worth. But that's because we're pursuing the position in a way that doesn't allow us to fully express ourselves.
Yeah.
So this is exciting. I can't wait to do this event. It's going to be a real eye opener for a lot of people who have, been thinking in a rather traditional way to see how many different things they're capable of doing when they don't need to get permission from someone first.
Yeah. And it's October 2nd. You need to go, the website to go to is, it's www. It's Ideas Powered by You, and the letter U. So Ideas Powered by You. And you've got it right there on the screen on gothere.com. And you'll see the information. You'll see sign up, and it allows you to sign up for coming here in the studio to be our studio audience, which we invite anybody local here to the DMV area to come join us locally in person. There'll be some little finger food to kind of keep your stomach from grumbling.
Now I know I'm coming.
I said, I said finger food. I didn't say your whole major dinner, because this is free, complimentary. This is free event. Starts at 6 p.m. We're going to start at 6 p.m. sharp, and we're going to go to 10 p.m. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, that's a Thursday and I have to go to work on Friday. Well, hey, guess what?
We're
going to be talking about
exactly. That's why you need to be here.
So you just stumble into work late, kind of tired on Friday because your head is so full of ideas for kind of getting out of that job.
Exactly. And those people that would say that, they're not going to come out because it's going to be out. They're going to be out late. They're going to go to work. You're going to be on Facebook that night. So you might as well be here with us.
And so if you have to join us live stream, because of course if you're around the country, you can't be here physically. Well, you could if you really put priority on that. But the live stream, we will have somebody actually dedicated to monitoring the live stream, the chat area, so that you can interact and ask questions. So do everything we can do to get you out of the mindset of employee and into the mindset and the action of an entrepreneur. That's another term I'll use, from employee to entrepreneur. I haven't used that one yet.
Well, our dear friend Bernie Dorman at CEO Space, actually, when I told him about small business CEO and all the things we were doing, he's like, you ought to do a class that takes people from entrepreneurship, or from employment to entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And he told me, go buy the domain eemindset.com. And I ran out and bought that thing. Okay. I haven't done anything with it yet, but I followed through. I took that idea, and I didn't, we're going to use that eventually. But that's really what you're talking about here, is taking people from an employee mentality to an entrepreneurial mentality. And there's nothing wrong with being employed unless you just leave it there. So we want to help you to explore what it takes to be fully fulfilled and realize your purpose and really have your contribution, your legacy for humanity realized by exploring all of your talents and not just the ones that people will pay you for in a job.
Yep. And so I know I said if you're watching this before October 2nd, if you're watching this Idea Lab even after October 2nd, and you're watching the recorded version, the program, the event will be live streamed. So it'll be recorded. You have to sign up, even though it's free. Register so that you are notified of the recordings when they're done and when they're processed. So sign up either way, whether it's now, whether it's a year from now, and you're watching this, it will be available to you, but only if you sign up, because we need to know who you are so we can get you the stuff.
And there may be some surprises for people. You never know.
That's true.
We get to be pretty generous around here.
Things happen. Yeah, things happen when we are unscripted, and this is organized and structured, but sort of unscripted because that's teaching. We'll be teaching.
Exactly.
So to ask Glenn what his final words are might be might be a dangerous thing, but
we want to wrap this up before the event, right?
To respect your time here for Idea Lab, sort of what last point or two or in your head as you're noodling, as you like to say, sort of this whole topic of ideas powered by you, or right now, whose boss is in the mirror? Is it you, the boss, or are you still looking at your boss that you're working for?
Well, I know a lot of people, because of the kinds of things we're talking about being in sharp contrast to what they're used to thinking about, they may experience some fear and some self-doubt about whether this is something they can do. And I'd like to assure everyone that what we're going to be sharing with them is going to be something they can do. It's going to be easy to do. If we define easy as something you can do, then the things we're going to share with them are going to be easy to do. And I just want to make sure that they don't make them easy not to do, because we have a tendency to do that too. What's easy to do can be easy not to do if you choose not to do it.
I think that's what Courtney's going to really address at the end. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think that fear, I've learned, I had to learn to change my relationship with fear. And what I mean by that is people look at fear as a bad thing. And when I learned to use it as a tool, it became my ally instead of my adversary. Okay. So for me, fear equals time to learn.
Okay.
If every time you experience fear, you can condition yourself to think, oh, I'm experiencing a little fear right now. I must be about to learn something, or it must be time for me to learn something. Okay. Then you actually can look forward to the learning, because that's what's going to equip you to address the fear that you're experiencing. So if you are fearful at all about whether or not you can do this, or whether or not this is for you, we're going to teach you at this workshop the kinds of things that you need to do. It's going to reveal to you why there's nothing to be fearful of. Because the only reason you're fearful is when you don't feel competent to address the challenges you're currently facing. When you learn how to ride a bicycle, you no longer are fearful of it. True. When you learn how to drive a car, it's no longer something that causes fear. So when you learn what it takes to be an entrepreneur and to pursue ideas, there's no reason to be intimidated by it. But the only reason you're fearful now is because you haven't taken the time to learn what's necessary to address the challenge.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a all or nothing thing either. You know, folks, we've been saying your job or what you're doing now is the investment, it's the learning, it's the tool, but it's important to start putting into action the other thing. And so it's not an all or nothing. Learn, come and get what you can get from the program, from the event, and then implement it in increments, bit by bit, but be in action. That's the biggest thing, is to learn and then be in action.
You can definitely do these things on parallel tracks.
Yes.
You don't have to give up your full-time job.
In fact, I advise not to.
Exactly.
for the income to fund the new thing.
That's right, exactly. And it's you know, that's another thing, is people think that they have to cold turkey.
Yeah.
Some of the best ideas are pursued as side ventures until you build them to the point where they're sustaining you. But if you never get to the point of building that sustainability, then somebody else ends up benefiting from pursuing that idea.
So you need to be with us as we continue this conversation. It'll be more than a conversation. We'll be actually teaching you the hows too, and the whats. So October 2nd, 2014, in case you're watching this some other year, at 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock p.m., give or take. The way we go, give or take.
We may have some real gems fly in there and not want to cut the camera off, but we're going to stay until the job is done. I promise you that.
And it is Ideas Powered by You, the letter U.com. IdeasPoweredByYou.com is where you want to go to register now, while you're still thinking about it, while you're watching this. So,
awesome.
Looking forward to this.
I'm going to register myself.
There you go.
I want to see what those bonuses are going to be. I know you always offer some good stuff.
Yeah, but you know, they may not know that until they're actually there at the event.
That's right. You got to register and get on the mailing list and come on out and see us, because you don't want to miss any of this stuff. We're going to rock your world in a good way.
Yep. So that, I guess we will wrap up the Idea Lab.
Isn't it kind of uncomfortable, like wrapping up a TV show?
Yeah, I know. Well, I've got to get better at this.
You feel like you got to keep going and everything, but you know, I think you did the job tonight. This is good.
Good. Thank you so much for being my guest.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being a friend, a colleague, a visionary, because you know, that's the other thing with ideas, and with people who you sit down with and trust to bounce things off of. I've got a million of them. You get a million ideas. We think differently. we feed off of each other, we feed each other, and that's just, if you're sitting out there alone, if you're sitting out there and you don't ever talk to somebody else, you don't ever share what you're thinking. And I know we have to kind of limit that sometimes too, because you share something with the naysayers and they go, oh, but you can't do that. Oh, but it'll never work.
But that's because you choose. That's because you choose to be in the company of naysayers. If you sit around with visionaries and people that are passionate about what's important to you, then they will not be naysayers. And that's one of the reasons why what we've created here with Village Connector is so important, is that we're around people that inspire us. People that build us up, and for whom we do that, as a service as well. Yeah. So
somebody told me not only inspire but scare you sometimes.
Exactly.
You need to be around people that scare you, because then you go, ooh, and
that's right.
And you figure out, so why are you scared? What's the fear?
That's right.
And you get through that.
You learn. You find out that it's time to learn.
Yes. So with that, we will wrap up. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. I'm honored to share the most valuable resource you have to share, which is your time with us today, tonight, whenever you're watching this. I invite you to get your ideas out of your head and into action and make your future, make yourself a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.